Area 51. There's always been conspiracies of aliens, UFOs in there. What's your kind of overview on that?
I haven't seen any demonstrable evidence that we have encountered aliens, that we have captured spacecraft, that we have used space-based technology to improve American existence. If we have, great. If we haven't, great. I have not seen that evidence myself. And I do psychologically believe that the belief in aliens is a very convenient belief system for us, especially as we get older in age and we start to approach the truth of our own mortality. And I believe that this plays out when you see true alien fans, like true alien believers. You very rarely see somebody convinced of aliens when they're 18 years old. You'll find people convinced of their faith when they're 18 years old, but you don't find people convinced of alien life forms when they're 18. Similarly, as you approach the end days, as you approach people who are octogenarians, septuagenarians, now you see people who are that much more curious and interested in believing in another life form in the universe. I believe there's a correlation there because as you come closer to the truth of your mortality, you want to believe that there's something more. You want to believe that there's other life forms. You want to believe that it's not all just biological nothingness when it could be, right? So I think that we're seeing with questions like Area 51 and conspiracies about aliens, an older generation, 40 plus, I would say, wants to believe that there's something more. So they choose to believe that there's something more. So they'll find anything that justifies that. Whereas people under 40 kind of don't give a fuck. And if aliens helped us come up with microwave technology, great. And if they came up with stealth technology, great. It's kind of, we're ambivalent to it because it doesn't really apply to us.
Yeah, I think a lot of it with the Area 51, it was the mystique of it all back in the day. Whereas obviously more things have come to light now where it sort of debunks that ideology. Keeping on the theme of conspiracies, so the JFK assassination. Obviously the files have they been released and fully read the transcripts now?
No.
Still not there. I mean, what's your take on that? The lone gunman scenario, was it multiple or was the CIA involved? I mean, I see no evidence that the CIA were directly involved, and I know I'll probably get a lot of flack in the comments section for saying that. But what's your take on it?
I think evidence is the key word here, and it doesn't really matter what idiot comments come across on the video. If there was evidence, it's most likely been destroyed. If the government was involved in the killing of a president, I can almost assure you that immediately after the president was killed, everybody involved was just destroying documentation. Why would they preserve it, right? There's chemical ways to destroy paper. There's fire pits. There's all sorts of ways that we already have right now to destroy documentation right now. If we're willing to destroy documentation in 2024, for sure, they were willing, with all the oversight we have now, for sure they were willing to destroy documentation then. So even if the CIA was involved, you'll never find evidence for it. And I understand that there are people who are hoping and hunting and trying to find whatever the answer is to this conspiracy. We may never know. If there was a second gunman, if there was some Russian collusion, I mean, that evidence may or may not exist. It may or may not be found. It may or it may not be retrievable. The fact that the files remain classified tells me one of two things. It tells me either there is something in the files that is still relevant to today's intelligence operations that they can't release it. So if the Russians were involved, for example, if potentially the Cubans were involved, right? If potentially somebody else was involved that has current geopolitical impact, they're not going to release those files. The second reason why they might not release them is because if there was something useful in those files that that would cause an uprising in the United States, they're not going to release those too, because they're not going to risk upsetting society in the best interest of transparency when they don't have to, right? Because national security is all about maintaining like public satisfaction and public security. So they're not going to release something that's going to turn into a riot in LA on purpose, right? That would be grounds for why they wouldn't release it. All of that is much less sexy than the idea that CIA killed them or something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I spent a week binge watching as much as I could on this whole conspiracy, and a lot of it contradicts one another. So you'll watch one documentary that says, there was multiple shooters, then there's another documentary that says there was multiple shooters, but contradicts the location. And I just thought, if I'm struggling to piece this together as a neutral, then these guys who've dedicated their lives to it, yeah, it's mind-blowing. Referenced a few times here at 9/11, the conspiracy. I never understood this one, but I get there's people out there that it was an inside job and both the CIA and America were involved in it. That one always baffles me, how they come to that conclusion. But while I brought it up, what's your take on the whole 9/11 inside job?
Yeah, so I mean, I was coming of age in the military when 9/11 happened. So I would argue that anybody who thinks 9/11 was facilitated or executed with the knowing collaboration of the American government is an absolute idiot. 9/11 was a travesty. 9/11 was the death of thousands of Americans. All you have to do is walk through the 9/11 Memorial Park in New York and you'll realize how real it is. So to believe in a conspiracy theory just highlights your incredible depth of ignorance and stupidity. And I will say that to anybody who comes up to me and says, I believe that 9/11 was a conspiracy. I'll be like, you are a fundamental dumbass and your life is going to be painful and sad for the rest of your existence. It is far more probable that 9/11 was a series of bureaucratic errors, known flaws in the system. I've been through multiple classified briefings and lessons learned about 9/11. In those classified briefings, it all points to the same thing, that multiple bureaucratic people made terrible mistakes in judgment and operational process that resulted in a window of opportunity where a foreign conflict, a foreign combat force was able to execute a terrible attack. Again, there were dozens and dozens of planned terrorist attacks against the United States that never happened. But you can't dodge every bullet. I mean, look at the rockets that Iran is sending to Israel. They get shot down majoritively, but one or two still get through, and those one or two still cause damage. So as sad as it might be to say, the pain of one lost American is significant, but we should be a little thankful it was only 2,000 Americans. It wasn't a city full of Americans. It wasn't tens of thousands of Americans. It wasn't millions of Americans, right? The damage was terrible and absolutely terrible compared to any other attack on the homeland before it. But there's still an element there where if we would have let 5 or 7 attacks through, there would have been tens of thousands of people dead, not just thousands.
And just to add a bit more meat to the bone on that, when I was watching the 9/11, the hijackers got stopped at one point in the airport as well. So, you could argue if there was if they've been stopped once before boarding the plane on what was it? It was something to do with the ruling on how much of a sharp object. I don't know the full ruling on it, but that was sort of overlooked. Then it just goes to show that mistakes can be made. Bureaucratic mistakes can be. So anyone who, I suppose, where I'm alluding to with this is anyone who says that 9/11 was an inside job probably hasn't done the research wholeheartedly.
Well, think about it too. I mean, it just, remember we talked about how difficult it is to keep secrets because secrets have a short shelf life. All of these conspiracies basically require that whatever secret decision was made is still a secret. Mm-hmm. That goes completely against what we already know about secrets. It's very hard to keep a secret. It's very hard to keep something hush, right? Even the stealth fighter and stealth technology was leaked, right? Before it came out. Like the location of MI6 was leaked, so that's why it came out. It's very hard to keep a secret. So you're telling me that some of the biggest secrets in the world, the inside job of 9/11, the secret of who killed JFK, that these massive secrets that are only known through conspiracy theory have somehow withstood the test of time and nobody knows the answer? No, it's ridiculous to think that. It's just painful to think that we fucked up and that we did this to ourselves. Like, that is the painful truth in both of those situations. And in every conspiracy, it's just people don't want to palate the fact that we're not as good as we think we are. And that's really all there is to it.
Well, I suppose a caveat to that one would be the whole conspiracy that's maybe not as bleak as 9/11 or JFK is the whole moon landing. I firmly believe we did go to the moon. Again, welcome the comment section to argue that out. But, I mean, while we've touched on all the other big ones, what's your take on the whole moon landing? Hoax, real, was it?
Yeah, it's just... it's hard to even take this one seriously. Yeah. It's hard to take any of them seriously. But the idea that we would try to dupe the American people in order to look like we're winning a space race, if we're not actually winning a space race.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
What's the strategic value in that? Like, there's no benefit geopolitically to faking out your own people. There would be a geopolitical benefit to faking out your opponent, but if we were lying to the American people and the Soviets knew that we were lying to the American people, then they would just start a correct fact-based information campaign to show us that the American media was lying to us. So it doesn't make sense. The liquid space people, the flat earth people, the we didn't land on the moon people, again, I put that in the category of you are a fucking stupid, ignorant human being with no hope of the future. So I feel more pity for you than I feel anger at you.
Amazes me, you reference the flat earthers. These people will dedicate their lives seemingly to this cause, and I think they've convinced themselves that it's true, or that the moon landing didn't happen, or that 9/11 was. I think they've got to that point now where that has become their reality, and then they're not going to turn or waver on that, turn a blind eye.
And you can't shake people from when they've accepted a reality. You can't move them, right? I've met flat earthers. I've met liquid space people, right? I've met them in the United States. I've traveled through rural Maine. I've traveled through rural South Carolina. I've traveled through rural Missouri and Texas, and there are plenty of people who believe these things to be true, but they are completely isolated from other people, right? They are small communities with no school, where everybody teaches their kids at home, where grandpa and grandma are the source and the fount of all knowledge, and the stories perpetuate generation to generation. Like, that's where this stuff lives. It also lives on the internet, yes, but predominantly the people who are pulling it from the internet, it's being passed through word of mouth. So, anybody with even a modicum of access to contrary information and the basic ability to look for corroboration is going to find that it doesn't withstand review. It doesn't withstand any kind of scrutiny.
No, I completely agree.